Hey y'all, how you doing today? CVMG coming at you with the Madtale Idle RPG Glitter Partners tier list. Now Alibaba be a little bit of a hood rat. He steals attack from the enemies whenever he hits them. When he attacks enemies, he can remove a ton of energy, and anytime an enemy dies, he restores an ungodly amount of HP to himself. The only issue I got with this guy is he's completely single target, so on a lot of stages, he's not going to be that useful. A tier. Now Morgiana is the crowd control queen. She's got stuns and charms, and at the very start of the encounter, she can charm up to 3 people to make them deal a crap ton less damage right off the bat. A tier. Puss over here just does godlike damage. Straight up, his multiplier is nearly 500, and he tacks on an additional 15% of the enemy's max HP to that hit. Anytime he crits with his ability or his basic attack, he follows up with another attack. Even his basic counter attacks deal an extra 10% of the enemy's max HP, and he has innate healing in his kit. Easy S tier. Slotting in Abdullah is essentially making a 4-man team, but those 4 men have a lot more buffs. He buffs your entire team's attack and crit rate at the beginning of the match more than they could ever receive from another character. And whenever a squishy partner falls below half HP for the first time, he's going to heal them too. S tier. Tybalt, the Mole Gentleman, is essentially just a god tank. Anytime he gets hit, he heals himself. He increases his own parry, he has a lot of defensive stats. He comes with a surprising amount of damage mitigation, but that's really it. He doesn't do anything else. So in terms of being a tank, I guess he would be an A tier. But if I'm being honest, I kind of want to put him in the C. Kasim, you have a slight chance to stun the enemies whenever they attack him, and his area of effect ultimate has a slight chance to stun anybody anyways. The RNG in his kit has been carrying me progressively through campaign stages I should not be able to do. I am just sort of using him as a supplement crowd control though, because I have 3 other main ones on my team. So for that reason, I'll probably put him in the B tier. Mavis, whenever she receives damage, she increases her own damage, and she can deal explosive attacks to the enemies that also make them bleed. She does come with one thing I really hate though, and that is just a frontline only ultimate. Her ultimate only hits the front line. It's complete garbage in my opinion. C tier. The Mermaid is actually pretty useful. This area of effect ultimate can deal some hefty damage, and it shrinks up to all of the enemies hit, and shrinking them makes them deal less damage. Then whenever these shrunken enemies with their decreased attack hit her, it heals her. This passive is my real selling point. It's gotten me through so many stages. Whenever HP falls below half health for the first time, she has a 50% chance to just stun everybody. A tier. Thumbelina, Thumbelina. It's sort of just like having a nuke on your team. Like you have a little ticking time bomb on your team that doesn't really do anything except whenever half of your team dies and then she dies afterwards, she does an explosive hit to the entire enemy team. Problem is, there's so many prerequisites that need to be fulfilled in order for you to receive the full effectiveness of this attack. 1, your teammates have to die so that her stats can increase. And then she has to die, but not be the last one to die, because that means you lose. And then whenever she dies, it's not even the most damage in the world. Like Scissor Girl does way more damage than she does whenever she dies. I'm putting Thumbelina in the D tier. Now these dwarves are insane. They have an area of effect ultimate that has a plethora of effects that can be applied at random. He can stun, silence, or fear enemies hit, and this multiplier goes up to damn near 1,000, and that's also complemented by his paragenetic weapon, which increases skill damage by up to 100%. So in summary, an area of effect attack with a 1,000% multiplier that deals damage times 2 to all enemies with a chance to apply debuffs. S tier. Frog Traveler does insane crit damage. Not only does he have a pretty decent multiplier on that ultimate, it increases his crit rate and crit damage. His basic attacks supply him with a ridiculous toughness and attack buff, and then anytime he crits, he can heal himself for up to half the damage dealt. I believe I've said this before, but just to reiterate, this is a late game character because in order to get the maximum amount of crits, you're going to need a very high crit rate. On this guy, probably around like 70%, considering he buffs his own. So you're going to need a higher level secret set, and we don't have those in the early game. So for the late game, I'm going to put this guy as an S tier single target damage dealer, but in the early game, he's like a C. The Flower King is your ideal healer. His basic attacks will heal himself, his abilities will heal your entire team, but it also does damage to the enemy team. He's not just a healer, he comes with other things too. One thing that throws me off though is this really nice base defense and HP means he's gonna stay on the field a little bit longer, but you want him to be one of the first ones to die so that he could grant this heal over time to your entire team. All of his abilities are really good, but he's just not mechanically sound, so I'll give him a B tier. Frog Prince is just your indestructible wall. Anytime he gets hit, he has an 80% chance to ignore the damage, and he can do that multiple times. He also absorbs the damage your allies take, crowns your squishiest character to make them tankier, and then heals anytime they deal a skill. If you need a super duper baller to the wall tank, then this guy will definitely fill that role. But all he does is tank, so I'm only gonna give him an A. Now the Hook Gun Hunter is an ideal candidate to be your main carry in the beginning of the game because he heals himself with his basic attack, and he has an area of effect attack that heals himself as well. He does rely on dealing some killing blows in order to maintain this attack buff that he's got, and he's one of those heroes that execute enemies dealing more damage as long as they have less than 30% HP. If you got this dude as your main carry in the beginning of the game, I'm sure he carried you farther and faster than any other character possibly could, but whenever it gets to the late game, I could definitely see him falling off a bit. B tier. Cinderella is super good. Anytime she gets attacked, she counterattacks, and that's just a passive, not even a skill. These counterattacks can also bleed enemies and heal herself. Her ultimate, on the other hand, does some pretty intense damage, and then we've already decided that damage over time is king in this game, and it adds bleed. Anyways, there's a reason she's in the beginner pack in the beginning of the game. She's one of the best partners you can get, S tier. The Harsh Lady's got some CC on her. Now, she does this cage attack that hits 3 enemies and then roots them. Rooting is essentially just the same thing as a stun in this game. Unfortunately, it has a low chance to proc, and it can only at a maximum hit 4 people once you max her paragenetic weapon. I do, however, use her as a backup stunner. Sometimes you want a full team of stunners, and she's a great addition to those teams, but she's still like a C tier. Now, Scissor Girl is a total girl boss. I'm usually the first one to say you don't want dying to be a part of your strategy, but whenever she dies, she deals poison and bleed to all enemies, and that is a ridiculous amount of damage. This ultimate is so violent it should be illegal. I would have to censor it off on my channel. And her basic attacks have a chance to stun and poison the target. Easiest S tier I've ever placed. Uh-oh, am I gonna get hate for this one? Red Hood is good, all right? She's sort of like a bruiser tank. She has a lot of parry incorporated into her build, and she can deal some decent damage while keeping herself alive. Her whole gimmick, however, is relying on an ungodly amount of parry, but there are ways to get past parry. You can't parry damage over time, that's all I'm saying. C tier. Mirror Queen, I hate this partner. If there's something I'm missing, please let me know, but the only thing I'm gathering from her is that she buffs her own attack to deal mediocre damage anyways with an ultimate that only hits 2 guys. 2. I mean, sure, you could use her to buff other people in your team and make them better, but then why wouldn't you bring someone like Alibaba? You might hate me for it, but she's going in the F tier. Princess Ambition is all right. I ran her for a little bit. She is the damage over time burn unit. Now, burn is very rare in this game. Most of the time you're seeing bleed or poisons. So if you want to see some burns, this is the only way you're going to get to do it. Her only ability is an area of effect attack that burns everybody, and that's really not that bad. But the more people she burns, it starts to ramp up her attack as they take burning damage, and she can deal some insane damage later in the fight. To be fair, I've yet to see a fight last more than like 4 rounds. Maybe that's just the team I'm using, but the ramp up strategy doesn't really work in this game. So I'm gonna give her a D tier. Prince Charming is okay. He's sort of like the oh crap button because whenever he dies, he heals everybody on your team. He does, however, have a lot of damage mitigation, so he's probably not gonna be the first one to die on your team. He can deal a little bit of damage and provide some burst healing to your team every now and then, but he's not really reliable, so I would put him in the C. Snow White, yet another character that just relies on dying in order to see the full effectiveness, but whenever she dies, the enemy team gets a defense break and your team gets an attack buff. So if you ever wanted that Summoner's War Galleon setup, this is how you gotta do it. I was feeling her in the beginning of the game, but now that I'm getting a little bit later, she's starting to fall off for me, so I'm gonna drop her down to the B tier. Prince Glass is our stunner. He has a lot of stuns incorporated into not only his basic attack, not only his ultimate, but whenever he dies, he has a chance to stun everybody. Now, to be honest, I really hope we're running out of that if this character dies, this happens thing, because it's starting to get a little bit old. But he can also increase your partner's energy, which would be helpful, and I have to consider the people all the way back in F tier. I can't place him that low, so I guess he would be like a C. In the Prince of Pleasure, we have a chance to poison on the basic attack, so that's always good. Whenever he is attacked, he provides a defense break to the enemy, but it is the most minor defense possible at a measly 10%. He reduces enemy skill damage by a little bit, and his paragenetic weapon just increases the poison chance from his basic attack. This dude kind of sucks. D tier. Now we're getting into the rarer qualities. We got the Sea Witch. Instantly in S tier, just from having her on your team, you get the 25% defense buff to your entire team. So that's 125% defense you don't have to incorporate into your secrets or stats. She comes with the God Mode ultimate that has a chance to silence all enemies hit from an area of effect attack with a decently high chance to proc. I have opened on enemies and silenced 4 out of 5 of them, turn 1 on a mermaid set. Instead of dying, whenever her HP falls below half, she heals herself. And even her basic attacks have a chance to silence the targets, which is very useful. Easy S tier. Next is the Star Witch. Her gimmick is the polymorph debuff. Whenever enemies are polymorphed, they cannot take action, but they have a chance to break out of the polymorph after a certain amount of ultimates are received. It's still a very powerful debuff, and it will carry you through multiple aspects of the game, except for enemies that are immune to polymorph, like the dragon. So for people like the dragon, she'd be an F tier. But for like the campaign and anything with a 5-person stage, she's going to be an S. Now Mercury, I have not seen this dude go off yet, but I know he can. These 2 axes that he uses provide debuffs to the enemies, and if he can get both axe debuffs off on that enemy, he could just whop them. He can steal high amounts of energy from the enemies, making him spam his abilities, and then killing enemies recovers HP to himself, making an ideal candidate to carry. He is a bit pay to win though, and there are free-to-play damage dealers that I think could compete with him, so I'll just place him in the A. And water spirits like Burger King, have it your way. She could either be an attacker or she could be a tank depending on how you build her. If she has a higher parry rate, she goes white, and if she has a higher crit rate, she goes black. Anytime she's controlled, she will heal herself, so that'll be very helpful for dealing with all of these tricky crowd control people we've been talking about up until now. She can either be a very valuable attacker with area of effect attacks, or she could be a tank. It's up to you. Since she is so versatile, you really can't place a ranking on her because depending on the form and depending on where you use her, she will be ranked differently. So she is rank Rainbow, F through S, all of the ranks. And that's gonna do it for my glitter partner tier list. Is there anybody that you think I got wrong? Please let me know in a comment. I can accept constructive criticism. But thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, then please subscribe and feel free to join my Discord. But other than that, y'all, that's gonna do it for me today, and I'll see y'all later. Bye.